Okay. Hello, everyone. I want to welcome all of you who are here today, all of you who are live, and all of you who are watching the replay later. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome, Sharon. Um, my name is Dr. Serafina Ankala. I'm a medicine woman and a somatic relationship guide. And for the last 10 years, I've worked with individuals and couples to turn relationships from sources of stress, confusion, or heartache into living, breathing works of art. Relationships that are consciously designed and deeply nourishing. And so before we dive in, I just want to acknowledge something. If you're here, it's probably because you know there's more possible in your relationships, and that maybe you're longing for deeper intimacy, maybe you're longing for better communication, maybe you're longing for more safety or simply less tension. And I want you to know that you're not broken and your relationships are not doomed. You've just been following a blueprint that you didn't consciously choose. And I know this personally because I used to live in that blueprint too. My early relationships were a confusing mix of longing and frustration, and I was acting out old patterns I didn't even know I had. And no matter how much I tried harder, the more date nights I had, the more conversations I had, the more compromise that I agreed to, nothing truly shifted until I understood the difference between a default relationship and a designed relationship. So today, I'm so excited to show you the difference and leave you with some tools that you can start using right away to move forward with the kind of love that you actually want. So as we start, I would like to do a quick check-in. On a scale of 0 to 10, how satisfied are you with your relationships right now? Think about not just your romantic relationships, but your relationships with your family, your friends, your coworkers, even your relationship with yourself. And for the sake of the check-in, just pick one relationship that you want to focus on. And we're going to do this on a 0 to 10 scale. 0 being not satisfied at all. 3 being there's some good parts in the relationship, but a lot of the relationship is really painful. 5 being neutral, meaning I don't love it, but I don't hate it. And 7 being mostly good with a few challenges. And 10 being it couldn't be any better. So drop a comment in the chat and let me know where your relationships are right now. And as you're thinking about where you're at on that scale of 0 to 10, like how satisfied are you with your relationships? I also want you to ask yourself, what would make this relationship a 10? Would it be better communication, less fights, feeling seen, heard, and understood? Would it be authentic connection, more trust? You can drop that answer into the chat too. And if you don't know the answers to that yet, that's okay. You'll have a clear idea by the end of this class. This is an exploration. So I want to share part of my personal story with you. I grew up as the oldest of 8 children. I'm trying to see if, hang on a second. I want to see if I can, there we go. Trying to pull up the chat box so I can see what everyone says. So Sharon wants better communication. Shannon wants trust. We've got an 8 and a 5. Great, amazing. Thank you for dropping your answers in the chat box. Okay, so yeah, my personal story, I grew up as the oldest of 8 kids in a household that was both chaotic and oppressive. And I was expected to be the caretaker of my brothers and sisters from a very young age, while I was living under conservative religious rules and surrounded by lots of aggression and violence. And I was a really sensitive child, so this was absolutely devastating for me. And I remember as a very young kid, I remember I promising myself that I would never, ever become like the adults around me. And one day as a teenager, while I was caring for my siblings, I had this moment where I was like watching myself from a different place. And I saw myself disciplining my little brother in the exact same way that all of the kids in my family had been disciplined, through massive violence. And in that moment, as I was witnessing myself doing the very thing I swore I would never do, I felt horrified. And I had this shocking realization that if I didn't learn another way, that I would become exactly like the adults in my family. And that was the turning point for me that set me on a lifelong path of study of relationships, communication, trauma healing, and finding a better way. And for many, many, many years, I devoured everything I could and completely devoted myself to this, to learning about emotional literacy and attachment theory, nonviolent communication, boundaries, listening, desire, rupture and repair. And slowly I freed myself from my family's toxic dynamics and my religious community. And eventually I was able to remove myself from a marriage that was filled with a lot of violence. And through radical self-responsibility and these practices that I'm going to share with you today, I reconstructed every single one of my relationships. And I went from most of my relationships being like in the 0 to 3 range to now I'm living my entire life in the 7 to 9 zone. I'm surrounded with relationships that are just bursting with trust and love and safety and joy. And I'm just really enjoying all of my relationships because of this redesign process. And that's why I'm here with you today, because I want you to know that it's possible to redesign your blueprint too. And I want to share this with everyone that I can. All right, next slide. There's 2 paths to relationship. The first path is a default relationship where most people live. This is when your relationship style comes from what you absorbed in childhood, from your culture, from your past relationships. And the default relationship happens without you ever consciously choosing it. In the default relationship, you repeat patterns that you saw in your parents or community, kind of like the story I was telling about the discipline. You get stuck in anxious avoidance cycles because you don't feel safe, and it's hard to trust in those kind of relationships. You avoid conflict, or you either avoid conflict or you live in constant conflict, one side or the other. And if you're looking for a romantic relationship, you just hope that the chemistry will be enough to make it work. And you end up playing out trauma patterns and unspoken rules that you grew up with. And many times this happens very much in the unconscious and subconscious realms, so you don't even know that it's happening. The second path is a designed or a conscious relationship. And this is what I help people to create. In designed relationships, you build connection around shared agreements and clear boundaries. And you use rupture and repair tools so that conflict actually builds connection and trust instead of breaking it down. You have regular check-ins as you grow together in the relationship, you communicate deeply and directly, and you treat your relationship as a practice, not just as a hope, something that you're hoping will happen and something that you're crossing your fingers that it will go well. A designed relationship is one where you rewire your brain, your habits, your beliefs, your boundaries, your agreement fields, so that you can truly create the relationships that you desire. So I'd just love for you to reflect right now. Where do you feel you are right now on that spectrum of default relationship to designed relationship? You can post that in the chat box and let me know where you're at right now. And again, you can just pick, and we're talking about all sorts of relationships. So just pick one relationship that you want to focus on and we'll talk about that one. And while you're posting in the chat box where you're at in your relationship or relationships right now, I just want to, let's see, moving more towards designed relationships. Bravo. That's a lot of work. And I applaud you for doing that work. Yes. So, what many people don't know is that when you're a child, your brain spends much of its early years in theta brainwaves. And theta brainwaves are deeply absorbent. It puts your brain in a deeply absorbent, almost hypnotic state. And if you look into developmental psychology research, it shows that before the age of 7, children don't yet have the abstract reasoning to question what they're taught. They simply absorb what's in their environment. And by the time you're around 8 years old, most of your relational software has already been installed. And again, this is subconsciously and unconsciously without you even understanding what's happening. And you never get to ask, what do I really want in relationship and what feels right to me? And actually, on the contrary, sometimes even when children know what they want and what feels right for them, it's very repressed and suppressed in these default relationships, and it's quieted down very quickly. So yeah, as young kids, you just learn to follow the unspoken rules of survival because that's what the grown-ups in your environment are teaching you. And unless we consciously redesign those rules, those subconscious and unconscious rules, we keep reliving them out as adults over and over again in all of our other relationships. So the good news is the brain can rewire at any age. So anytime that you pause and listen differently or speak authentically with truth instead of hiding it, you're literally creating new neural pathways. And default may have been the way you were programmed in the past, but design can be the way that you live your relationships in the future. And it's just a matter of learning how to navigate the rewiring process. So let's take a dive into the process. The pain of default relationships, like many people don't even know they're in a default relationship until they start feeling the pain or the symptoms of being in a default relationship. And that pain of being in a default relationship isn't always about dramatic blowups. Sometimes it's about the slow erosion of trust, the slow erosion of passion and possibility. And I want everyone listening to understand that this isn't just about romantic partnerships. Default relationships show up in all of your relationships. So with your partner, this can show up in having the same fight on repeat over and over again. This can be with your family relationships, old roles that you thought you left behind still playing out and still pulling you in other relationships. Relationships, it can show up in relationships with your friends, holding back what you really feel for fear of rocking the boat. This can show up in your work relationships. Like, for instance, you swallow the truth and smile when you don't mean it, or you avoid hard conversations. And this default relationship can even show up in your relationship with yourself. And this shows up like when you silence your needs, you push them down, you push down your emotions, and then you wonder why you feel flat and disconnected. And so maybe you recognize some of these symptoms of being in a default relationship. A few questions to just ask yourself. In any of your relationships, do you feel unseen, unheard, and unappreciated? Are you constantly guessing what others need while you're ignoring what you need? Are you telling yourself it's not that bad, but inside you're longing for something more? Or the opposite, are you surrounded by noise and conflict, but never resolution? Sometimes the hardest default relationships aren't about the chaos, it's about the meh. It's about the relationships being fine and functional, but not really fulfilling. And that whisper that comes, is this all that there is? Like, there's got to be something better, right? Those are all symptoms of default relationship. So does this land for you? Drop a yes in the chat if you've ever felt stuck in a default relationship of any kind, not just in a romantic relationship. Let me know if you can relate with any of these things. I'm getting yes and yes. Yeah, I think this is very common. It's very unusual for people to not have these types of experiences. So here's a few examples of default relationship patterns. And when we're talking about default and design relationship patterns, they're two opposite sides of the same coin. So what we're going to learn today is how to flip that coin over when we find ourselves in a default relationship, how to flip the coin over and start to design by feeling the pain of that default relationship. And we'll use the pain to help us find the other side of the coin and find the conscious part, the conscious construction of that relationship piece. So let's take an example about how you handle conflict. Maybe you know this default rule. The rule is avoid conflict and keep the peace at all costs. If something bothers you, but you don't say anything about it because you don't want to start a fight, so you smile, you nod, you swallow it down, but inside resentment is building, and then one day you explode over something small and the other person is totally shocked. They never even knew you were upset. Have you ever had that happen? So this is one side of this is one of the very common ways that default relationship shows up. And so as we're looking at that presentation of default relationship, starting to think about, like, if that doesn't feel good to me, what would feel good to me? So avoiding conflict doesn't keep the peace, it just buries tension. And conscious design flips that rule. So instead of the rule that says avoid conflict and keep the peace at all costs, we can start to feel into our bodies about what would feel good. And something that might feel good would be conflict can be safe, and honest conversations build trust. And so we feel into to flip the coin over, we feel into like what it is that doesn't feel good about the default rule, and we just think, what would I like instead? And this is oftentimes not necessarily a mind game, but sometimes you can really start to flip the coin over by feeling into the body. Even if you can't think of what you want the right answer to be, your body knows the answer. And if you start to feel into your body will tell you. So another rule is, many of us learned that if you're upset, just stay quiet until it blows over. And that rule teaches us to disconnect from ourselves and from others. And the conscious shift actually brings us back into connection with ourselves and others. And a conscious shift on the other side of that coin might be, my feelings are valid and they can be shared respectfully. And as we're going over the default rules and the designed thing on the other side, just feel into your body, like, how does it feel when you feel when you're hearing one or the other? So another example, and this one shows up everywhere in partnerships, friendships, even at work. We think, if that other person really cared about me, they would just know. Give me a thumbs up or an emoji or a yes if you've ever been in that situation before. Yeah, this one's very common. Mind reading isn't love. Mind reading is manipulation. And so conscious design means saying something like, here's what I want. Here's what I need. Yes, this is vulnerable to express what we desire, but it's powerful because it gives us the chance to come into alignment with our desires and speak them, and it gives others the chance to really show up for us. So these are just a few examples of how these default rules can be flipped into conscious design. And I just want to acknowledge that while in theory these things might seem obvious, in practice we're battling against years and sometimes decades, many decades of programming in our nervous system. So speaking about it is sometimes difficult, and doing it is sometimes even more difficult. And I just want to acknowledge that every time that you're bringing consciousness into your relationships. You're coming into alignment with yourself and your safety and your nervous system, and it pays back in dividends many, many, many times over. So all the hard work is worth it. When we're in default relationships and feeling the symptoms, most of us try to fix it. It's super uncomfortable. And maybe you've tried to fix the symptoms of default relationship. Some of the things people try is date nights with a partner, or reading self-help books, or listening to podcasts, or just guessing what your boss or your friend or your child needs instead of asking them. Sometimes people try to fix it by avoiding the hard conversations because they don't want to rock the boat, or swinging to the other extreme and just dumping everything on the table all at once and over communicating, which usually that just blows things up as well. So these attempts at fixing things aren't failures. They're just evidence that you care, but they don't work because what it's doing is just treating the symptoms and not going to the source and fixing the source of the problem. So I just want to check in with you again. What's one thing that you've tried in any relationship that didn't really fix the problem? Go ahead and type that in the chat. Rescuing. Yeah, exactly. Rescuing is pretty common and never works. That puts you straight into the victim triangle. Thank you. So here's why those quick fixes don't really work. When our nervous systems get into sympathetic response, when stress hits, most of us haven't trained our nervous systems to be able to rise to the occasion, and we fall back into the brain's survival wiring, and it takes over, and suddenly you're running the old blueprint, the one you absorbed as a kid. Even if you've promised yourself 1,000 times you're not going to do that anymore. And research really backs this up. It's not about how many date nights you schedule, or how many team building activities you do at work, or how many times you apologize. What really matters is how you handle the moments of tension, and how you handle those moments when you notice that you're in the default patterns and the default relationship. Sharon says, stating my concerns, trying to change the other person without asking questions, and being controlling. Yep, I've tried all of those things myself too. They've never worked. Thank you for sharing that. The Gottman Institute, one of the top relationship research centers in the world, found that 4 behaviors predict breakdown in relationship more than anything else: criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. And I just want you to notice, we're not going to go deep into that, but I just want you to notice that none of those things are actually fixed by taking another vacation or reading a book. They're fixed by learning new ways to repair and communicate and navigate the nervous system, and actually rewire those neural networks to do something different than you were programmed to do when you were a kid. And again, the Gottman Institute studies couples, but this isn't just about couples. The same patterns, again, show up with your mom, your boss, and even your relationship with yourself. And so that's why people say things like, I feel like I'm 12 years old again when I'm with my parents, or I swore I'd never ever be like my ex. And then I hear myself saying the exact same things. Falling into these patterns is not weakness, it's wiring. It's nervous system wiring. And the hopeful and good news is that old wiring can be rewired, old programs can be rewritten, and old behaviors can be changed. So what happens if we don't redesign? If we stay in the default patterns and we don't flip the coin over and redesign to a conscious relationship, what happens? Well, a few of the things that happen are we start to suppress our feelings and our needs and our desires until resentment builds. And once that pressure builds up, we explode and trust is broken, or we settle for relationships that are fine and functional, but totally lifeless. There's so many, we've talked about the symptoms, and the things that happen when you're in a default relationship. And this is true in every arena with spouses, siblings, colleagues. And one of my favorite ways to investigate this is like, even with the inner voice that you live with every day, that relationship with yourself. And that's actually the most important one. But here's the good news. Once you see the default blueprint, you get to choose. Awareness is the very first step. When we're not aware of what's going on, we can't change it. But once we become aware and bring those subconscious and unconscious patterns into the conscious mind, then we have the power of choice. And once we have the power of choice, then we are able to create another kind of relationship and another kind of love and another kind of life. You can't design a new house if you're still following the old floor plan, but once you have a new design, a conscious design, everything changes. So let me, hold on, changing slide here. There we go. I want to share, we've spent some time looking at the pain of default relationships. And so I'd like us to all just to take a deep breath and switch gears. So I want to give you something practical that you can use right now to start shifting your default patterns to conscious design. It won't solve everything overnight, but it's simple. It doesn't take more than a couple minutes. It works in every relationship with a partner, a friend, a child, a coworker, even with yourself. And this is something that I use every day in all of my relationships with my clients. And it's helped me to bring more connection and intimacy into all of my relationships and more consciousness into all my relationships. So this little tool can get you out of autopilot into conscious design and change the way you connect with everyone who matters most to you. So I like to use this particular tool after conversations, after a date night, after arguments, after activities that you share together. I use it after every coaching session I do. And so now we're going to practice this with you. So I'd like you to choose a relationship that you want to focus on. And this can be with yourself or with someone else. And in that relationship, first question, what's one thing you would like more of? And feel free to drop that in the chat. Yes, I will share the PowerPoint after the meeting, absolutely. You're welcome. Okay, yes, drop it in the chat. What's one thing that you want more of in this relationship? More connection. Beautiful. Second question, what's one thing you want less of in this relationship? Go ahead and drop that in the chat. Pure love, more face-to-face time connection. One thing you'd like less of. We'll give you a couple seconds to drop an answer in the chat. Judgment, that's a good one. Yes, less judgment, good. What's one thing that could be better if an adjustment was made? So what's one thing that could be adjusted or upgraded that would make the relationship work better for you if that change or adjustment could be made? Less of disrespect. Great, thank you. Honest conversations. So the adjustment would be more honest conversations. Is that what it is? Yes, great. Yes, so more honest conversations. That's a great adjustment. Feeling objectified. Great. So is that an adjustment of feeling less objectified in your relationship? That's the adjustment that you would want. Great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Okay, good. And then fourth question, what's one thing that you want to stay exactly the same, that you just love about your relationship and you think it's just perfect the way it is? While you're thinking about that, I'm just going to keep on going and I'll see your answers when they come in. So this four question a relationship assessment or relationship audit, this brings so much intimacy, so much connection, and so much truth into relationships. These questions help us speak the things that sometimes we're afraid to say. Sometimes we just guess at what we think other people think about these things, and we start to assume, and we assume incorrectly. And just by asking these four questions, you can start to see into another person. They can start to see into you. You can start consciously designing how you want the relationship to go based on the truth that's in the space between you instead of assumptions or guessing or withholding or hiding. Let's see, mutual desire for being with family is something perfect that you don't want to change. I love that. And how we are with each other when we're together. That's perfect too. Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. So instead of silently hoping that things will change or waiting for someone to read your mind, you put your truth on the table in a way that's clear and non-threatening. And notice that with this four-question relationship audit, there's no demand or manipulation in these questions. It's just about curiosity, wanting to understand the other person and clearly communicating so the other person can understand you and sharing what you're feeling and desiring in the moment. And even just naming your desires and answering these questions can start to shift the pattern from unconscious to conscious. And I'd like you to just consider what would be different in your relationships if you could regularly discuss your desires and your preferences with the people who are most important to you. If you knew about them and they knew about you, what you loved about the relationship, what wasn't going well for you, what you wanted more of, what you wanted less of, and what you wanted to adjust. If you could have those conversations in a safe environment, in a safe container where both of you were just curious and just listening, what would be different in your relationships? I know that this practice completely changed all of my relationships, even with strangers. Like, I'm even just curious about strangers now, and I ask these questions when I'm interacting with people that I don't even know very well. So this works for close relationships and for all relationships. Great. We would grow closer. Yes, thank you. Yes, perfect. Thank you so much. That it's so great when the thing you love most about a relationship is that you just want more of it. That's beautiful. So beautiful. So, all right. Okay, so when you get down to the heart of relationship, we all want the same thing. I asked many, many people. I can't even count how many people I've asked over the last decade what they want most in their relationships. And the answers to that question have been almost universal. Like people just tell me the same thing over and over again. People want to feel seen, heard, and understood. They want to be acknowledged and validated. They want to feel safe and have their needs met. They want authentic connection. They want intimacy and freedom to be themselves. They want to be appreciated. They want to resolve conflict with love. and safety. They want autonomy and togetherness at the same time. And they want to know that they're important to the other person in the relationship. So notice that none of these things are about interventions like more date nights or reading another book. This is about connection, safety, and authenticity. And all of these things have to do with how our nervous system is wired for a relationship. And so this is exactly what conscious design makes possible, because in conscious design of relationship, we're working with those patterns in the nervous system to rewire for safety, to rewire for getting the needs met, to rewire for authentic connection, being safe. So, let's see. Psychologists call this self-determination theory. The research shows that we thrive when 3 of our core needs are met: autonomy, connection, and authenticity. So these aren't luxuries, they're basic human requirements for healthy relating. And this is one of the things that has to be woven into all relationship teachings and interventions. So even answering these 4 questions can bring you in from default to design, because this is what they start to establish, is that safe space for autonomy, connection, and authenticity. So let's see. Yes, imagine if once a month in every important relationship in your life, you slowed down and asked these 4 questions and just listened with your partner, your best friend, your child, even yourself. How much conflict would be prevented? How much closeness would open up just from naming what's true? This is where conscious design begins. In my full relationship design course, we go through the 8 pillars that together transform your relationship from the inside out. Each pillar is like a beam in a house you're building. On its own, it helps, but when they all work together, the whole structure is strong and safe and beautiful. So I just want to go over the decades that I've been studying and teaching and helping clients redesign their relationships. I found that these 8 pillars, like if you can learn how to redesign these 8 pillars, it can like even one pillar at a time can completely change your relationship. But bringing all these 8 pillars of conscious relationship creation into any of your relationships will completely change everything for you. So module 1, we talk about the current blueprint, which is what we've been talking about so far today. This just basically goes over every relationship starts with a map, the one that you absorbed from childhood, culture, and past partners. And again, most of us don't even realize we're still following it. So this module is about shining a light on that unconscious blueprint so that you can finally see the patterns that have been running the show. This is deep shadow work. Today, we talked a lot about the general default blueprints that many people have in common, but in the full course, we actually uncover the specific default patterns that are keeping you stuck and shining the light on how you can turn your personal default patterns into conscious choices. So instead of just talking about the general patterns, we go deep into shining that light into the shadow of your subconscious, your relational subconscious, and start to bring awareness to your patterns and your programs. Because again, awareness is the first step. And once you come into awareness, then you can start to make choices. So the second pillar of healthy and conscious relationship is being in alignment with your desire. And I call it desire is a sacred desire is sacred compass. Desire often gets a really bad rap. We're told if we speak our desire that we're being too needy or too greedy or too much. But the truth is, desire isn't a demand. It's your North Star. It's your compass. And when you learn to listen to your longings, with honesty and self-responsibility, they guide you toward the relationships that truly nourish your soul. And they guide you into alignment with your highest self and your highest capacity. And today, we tapped into your true desire by asking how satisfied you were with your relationships and what would make them better. You learned the 4Q relationship audit so that you can practice sharing your desire and hearing other people's desire. And in this course, we'll go deeper into the art and practice of how to ask for your desire, when to ask for your desire, actually what to ask for, and how to handle resistance and triggers that come up with asking. There's so many, most of the people that I work with actually are terrified to speak their desire and ask for it. And they've had a lot of negative conditioning and negative programming. They've tried to ask for their desire and haven't got good responses. And so in this second pillar, we really start to talk about how to set up with, first of all, within yourself, how to get aligned within yourself with your desire, and then how to bring that alignment out into your outside relationships. In the third pillar, we talk about the unsaids, and these are all of the little things that are left unspoken. In every relationship, you have the conversations that you can hear with your ears that are spoken, and then you have all the conversations that are happening under the radar, and you notice those with body language and with energetics and reading between the lines. And these unspokens are the needs, the hurts, and the unvoiced truth. They pile up like bricks in a wall, and they slowly block intimacy out from the relationship. And this pillar is about clearing out those unsaids with compassion, so the wall comes down and connection and true intimacy can flow again. The next pillar is everybody's favorite. So everyone who's taken my course, this is what everyone raves about the most. And this is the boundaries pillar. Many people misunderstand boundaries, but boundaries aren't walls that keep people out. They're actually loving agreements that keep relationships safe and clear. And without boundaries, we either collapse or explode. With them, the space for both freedom and closeness is there, so we can thrive in that freedom and closeness. And so we go deeply into what boundaries are and how to honor your own boundaries, how to honor other people's boundaries, and how to use boundaries, again, for deep intimacy and deep connection. The next pillar is listening as devotion. We all want to feel truly seen and heard, yet most of us listen to respond and to defend ourselves and not to understand. In this module, we practice listening as an act of devotion. And we practice creating the kind of presence that makes others feel heard and seen and understood and deeply valued. And in this pillar, we learn several tools to really elevate and uplift your listening game so that your relationships feel closer than they ever had before. In pillar number 6, this is the magic redo. And this is also some of everyone who's taken the class is one of their favorites. Conflict is inevitable, but what matters is actually what happens after the conflict. This magic redo is a simple but powerful way to revisit a moment, repair the rupture that happened, and then actually build more trust through this magic redo than you had before the rupture ever happened. So it turns mistakes into stepping stones for intimacy. And this tool actually makes it possible so that you can have an agreement field in your relationships. It's okay to mess up. We don't have to be perfect. If we make a mistake, it's okay because we know how to do the magic redo. So mistakes aren't a big deal anymore. It's just like, whoops, we made a mistake. Let's do the magic redo. And then the mistake actually turns into something that strengthens the relationship. So making mistakes actually benefits the relationship, which is amazing. So module 7, or pillar number 7, is the amends process. Raise your hand if you can relate with this, but how many times have you been in a conflict and someone just gives you a quick "I'm sorry" and expects you to take that as an apology, but the sorry didn't heal the real wound. The sorry actually made it worse. Yeah. So true amends means actually naming what happened, feeling the impact that you had on the other person, and taking full responsibility. There's actually a 7-step process of amends that goes through everything to do so that that amends process can heal everything, not just from that one rupture or that thing that happened, but it can actually heal everything all the way back. I don't know if you can relate with this, but a lot of times when we have arguments that need to be apologized for, it's not just about that thing, it's about everything that happened before that thing and all the apologies that weren't made before. So this amends process can actually heal the wound that is happening right in the moment, but it actually heals all the past wounds at the same time as well, because you know how to actually speak to the root of the problem with and connect in a place that's a heart-to-heart connection instead of just quickly blowing it off as an "I'm sorry." And so this amends process, and in the last time I taught this course, I had people using it in their romantic relationships, in their relationships with their kids, in relationships with strangers. And I even had one woman who is in a group group home setting, and she actually got the whole house together and put them in a circle. And she's like, "We're going to make amends." And she taught the whole house the amends process. And it really like changed the whole dynamic of the whole house. So that tool is amazing. And then in the last pillar is that relationship assessment ritual, and we practiced that today. And there's that 4 questions, but there are also other rituals and other practices that you can implement on a regular basis into your relationships to strengthen them, and not just hope that the relationship is going to be okay moving forward, but it's actually like going to the relationship gym and lifting weights and getting the relationship all strong because you're practicing and you're strengthening the relationship on a regular basis instead of just doing disaster control when things go wrong. And so of those 8 pillars, which one feels most alive for you right now? Which one, if strengthened, would make the biggest difference in your relationships? Go ahead and drop it in the chat box. I'd love to see what's coming up for you. Boundaries. Yep, that's everyone's favorite. Good choice. Excellent choice. Okay, so we've just had a taste today, but imagine weaving all of these 8 pillars together and consciously creating a relationship where your desire is clear, not hidden, where unspokens are cleared before they turn toxic, where boundaries are loving, listening is devotional, and repair is sacred. That's the shift that happens from default to design when you implement these 8 pillars, and it changes not just one relationship, but all of them. We've covered a lot today, and I know this might sound too good to be true. So I want you to hear from some real people who have used these tools, not just in romantic relationships, but with family, friends, colleagues, and even themselves. This is what's possible when you shift from default to design. One of the students said, "This helped me far beyond my romantic relationship. I came focused on my marriage, but I realized that I could apply these tools to friends and colleagues too. The results have been so powerful. Whether you want more intimacy with a partner or deeper connection in all of your relationships, this course has it all." And another student said, "Because of these tools I learned in the course, I was able to turn moments of rupture into opportunities for deeper connection and intimacy. In the past, I would have avoided conflict, but now I feel confident navigating it, making amends with an open heart and creating a true win-win scenario in all of my relationships." These tools and insights have been completely life-changing. I came to this course wanting to develop a better relationship with myself, and I got so much more. I learned how to navigate relationships, monogamous and polyamorous, without fear, and to receive and offer pleasure from a place of self-trust. And a couple who took my course said they came to the first class and they said, we've been in therapy for years and we got more results in 1.5 hours with Serafina than we've gotten from all of our years in therapy. Serafina helped us more than all those years combined. I've never felt so seen, heard, understood, held, and acknowledged. She's a master of her craft and creates a space of deep safety and attunement. So those are just some of the feedback that I've received from clients who have taken this course. So before we close today, I want to see if there's any questions. We've gone through a lot of material. We've talked about a lot of things. Does anyone have any questions they would like to ask? No questions? Okay, great. For the sake of the people who are watching on replay, I'm just going to go over a couple of common questions that I get. One of the questions that I get all the time is, what if I'm the only person interested in designing the relationship? And what if my partner or my friend or family member doesn't want to participate? And this is an excellent question. This happens all the time. The truth is, relationships are systems. So if you change, the whole system changes. Even small shifts like naming your needs clearly or doing the 4-question audit with yourself, those things ripple outward. And sometimes the partner will join in later if they feel the difference. But even if your partner doesn't join later, the relationship is still going to shift. When you change one thing in the relationship, you change everything in the relationship. Let's see. What if, let's see. Okay, I think that's all we're going to do for questions today. So I just also want to mention that this course is not just for romantic relationships, but this is for all of your relationships. So as we close up today, I just want to leave you with this. You don't have to stay in default. You can choose a conscious designed relationship. And when you do, every single relationship in your life begins to change, especially the relationship with yourself. And once that relationship with yourself changes, everything else about your life changes. So if today resonated with you and you want to go deeper, I would love to invite you into my 8-week Relationship Redesigned course, where we explore all 8 pillars in depth with live guidance and practices that you can use right away. And we also have a supportive community walking this path with you. So right now we're in the super early bird pricing, which is about $150 off of regular price. This is the lowest tuition will ever be. So this price actually ends tomorrow. So if you feel the yes in your body that this is the time to step in, you can find all the details and register on my website at serafinaoncala.com. The link is right there. And I can also paste it in the chat for you. 1 second. Oh no, where did it go? Oh, here it is. 1 sec. I'll paste it in the chat for you. There we go. So also, whether or not you join the course or not, I just want to thank you for being here today. Your willingness to pause and reflect and imagine something more for your relationships is powerful and brave. And the Relationship Redesign course, it's an 8-week course. It's a very long commitment and totally worth it. But if you just want another little snippet like you had tonight, in 2 weeks from now, I'm offering another free masterclass. And this one is on everyone's favorite topic, which is boundaries. So we're actually going to go deeper into giving you a deeper look into the boundaries module and give you some practices and some principles and some tools that you can use to start up leveling the boundaries in your life. Let's see. Singles, yes, absolutely. So singles can absolutely join. And I've had people take this class who are not in any kind of romantic relationship, and they take this course so that they can be prepared to call in the right person. I've had people come who say to me, they're like, I know that if I stay the way I am, I'm going to call in a person that's not right for me. So I want to take this course so that I can become the person that I want to date. And they redesign their relationship rules so that they can call in the person that they want, and they're not just continually calling in. I think we've all probably either done this or known somebody who keeps dating the same person over and over. Every time they break up and get into a new relationship, it's actually the same relationship again, just with another person. So singles are totally welcome to come in to prepare themselves to call in their ideal partner. Or I've had singles come in and work on family relationships, work on friendship relationships, work on business relationships. So absolutely. So yes, this time around, it's 8 sessions, and it starts on October 2nd, and it's 8 weeks in a row. And each week we're going to go over one of the pillars of these 8 pillars. So we'll have a 2-hour class once a week. And then also every week we have an additional optional question and answer sessions. So I know, like in the 2-hour sessions once a week, what we do is we go over the principles that we're talking about, and then we get to practice them with the other classmates. And I noticed the last couple times that I taught this class, there's never enough time for questions and answers, and people want to go into depth. And I put people on the hot seat and give people like real-time sort of like group coaching. And so every week we'll have a 2-hour group session where we'll teach one principle per week of the 8 pillars. We'll practice it with the class, and then we'll have an optional question and answer session on a different day of the week. And all of this is going to be recorded. So it's best if you can show up in person, because then you can interact with the class. And but if you can't make it for some reason to the question and answer sessions or the regular sessions, they're all going to be recorded, and you'll have access to that. You'll have access to the recordings for 30 days afterwards. So it starts on October 2nd, and the times and days, it's going to be on Thursdays from 6:30 till 8:30 every Thursday. And for the question and answer sessions, they're to be announced. We're just going to take a poll with the class and see once everyone's signed up and the class takes the poll, we'll just do it at whatever time is convenient for everyone. So it'll be Thursdays, 6:30 to 8:30, and then one other optional day. And let's see, again, everything will be recorded. And after every weekly session, we're going to have practices that you can bring into your relationships and implement. And so those practices is what's like coming to the class and learning the new things and practicing it with classmates. That's one thing. But what's really going to shift your relationships is when you take that home, when you take that into your relationships and start practicing. That's where the big shifts really happen. And also a lot of people who take this course want to have some extra. I see a question, is this private or group session? This class is group session, and people, like, it's very common for people to want extra help and have some hand holding and coaching along the way. Like, how do I apply this to this particular relationship that this particular thing is happening? So I offer a discount on one-on-one coaching. So if you want to add some one-on-one mentorship in addition to this class, I also offer a discount so people can work with me more closely one-on-one if they want a little extra help applying the things they've learned in the class. So, any other questions? Well, thank you so much for your presence today and for your heart. Thank you so much for interacting with me and giving such beautiful answers in the chat. And remember, you don't have to figure this out all alone. You just have to take the first step. I've spent decades researching and developing this, and it's my honor to share this with people so that they can learn it in a matter of months instead of decades. So thank you so much for being here. And if you want the slides, could you, I'm not sure how to get them to use, what I'm going to do is put my email in the chat. And then if you want the slides, just email me and I will send you the slides. So okay, there's my email. And if you email me, I'm happy to send you the slides. And please reach out if you have any questions. You can reach out via email, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions you have. Thank you so much for coming tonight. I appreciate your presence in your heart, and blessings to you. And I hope to see you in 2 weeks at my boundaries workshop that I'm holding in 2 weeks. And I would love to also see you in the relationship redesigned course. Have a beautiful night.